The great ones, they're different. They really are. Not better, just different. Sure, there's a physical power, a mental strength, a complex but resolute constitution too. There's a whole lot more than just the measurables. That's something else, that intangible. It separates us from them. Welcome to the Legends series on Andy Raymond Unfiltered. A career spanning 214 games, a further 23 for his state and 21 for his country, a three-time Premiership winner, a Clive Churchill medalist. He was also inducted into the Australian Rugby League Hall of Fame. But who is Gordon Tallis?
That's a good question. Gordon Tallis is a little skinny kid from Townsville. When I go back up there, I'm Wally Tallis's son. I'm Judy Tallis's boy. That's it. That's who I am. That happen to play footy, and if you talk to people in Sydney, I might be the raging bull or that idiot on a footy show, but who I am is that little skinny kid from Townsville.
Is the real Gordon Tallis a different person from
By
the
far.
one most footy fans think they know?
Yeah, by far.
Yeah.
Well, everybody is. I'm not saying it was all an act, but I'm not that guy that they saw on the field every day. That's what I had to do to play footy at the level that I wanted to do when I was in Townsville playing. I didn't take it so serious, but for me to get in that, what people call beast mode now, when you watch the NFL or whatever, so for me to get in that state, I was sort of mucking around through the week, didn't want any contact, didn't that, but on game day I had to turn into a different sort of person, and to want to run into someone opposite you at 110 kilos and have no respect for your body, you had to change your mindset, because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you don't want to be that guy. But but I suppose the crowd and your teammates and all that make you want to do it, I suppose. And I didn't have the skill, and I've always said it, if I had Andrew Johns' skill, I wouldn't have to have been that person, because I'd beat him with my brains and my skills. So I had to beat him with my presence, my aggression. There's a lot that I had to get myself to be that guy.
What was your first memory of rugby league?
Going to the Townsville Sports Reserve and watching my beloved club Centrals run around and being the ball boy. And I just would cry because I wanted to be the ball boy, and I think my brother was getting maybe $3 a day, so it might have been 50 cents to be a Sam boy or whatever, and I just wanted to be, and that was a lot of money back then. That was a big bag of mixed lollies, 50 cents. That was massive. So, just going there and just wanting to be involved, but just being a ball boy or the sand boy. Believe it or not, there was sand when I was a kid, so you'd have to run the sand out, and Colin Scott and Gene Miles and all those guys were playing, and Chris Phelan, Greg Dowling, those guys were playing in Townsville when I was a kid, in my first memories. And I remember getting a photo, like I've got a photo somewhere of myself in a little red cardigan, and I didn't even come up to Colin Scott and Chris Phelan shorts, but they won the, I think, 1979 grand final for South. With like a few of my cousins or whatever, so I'm getting a photo with those guys that both played for Queensland.
How does a boy from Townsville end up wearing the red V of the Dragons? How did it happen? Who was responsible?
A guy by the name of Rod Reddy.
The Rocket.
The Rocket. So Rocket came to Townsville, I think, in 86, 87, coached Central's ASA, which was the club that I played for 10 years. And I would have been 12 or 13 at the time. And then he left Central's, and then he went, I think, over to Borough and had a short stint as a coach over in England. And then he was a reserve grade coach at St. George and assistant coach first grade. That's what they did back then. And he used to help just in recruiting. And I was a Townsville boy. He was there, and he rang up, and he happened to ring up the president. And the president at the time was Jeff Aiken, and I was in the pool with his son, Zane. And we're just having a beer. I'm 17 or 18, so we're just having a beer in the pool, mucking around. And he goes, "Oh, mate, are there any good young kids there still playing?" And then he rattled off a few names. I didn't hear the phone call, and then he said mine. And he goes, "Mate, Rod Reddy's going to call you." And I was like, "What for?" He goes, "Hey, mate, you want to come down and have a trial?" And that's as simple as what it is.
Wow.
And then I went to Sydney. Mum and Dad, God bless them, never had much money, but I think it was $600 for that paper ticket flight to go down there, and I trialled, and I thought, I'm a bit of a big deal here. St. George have asked me to trial. Didn't realise that it was only because I was in my mate's pool. And then I went there, and it was an open trial. Anybody could have walked off the street. So if I was in Sydney, anywhere you could go and trial, put your name down, and they give you. And I thought it was going to be cool. I was going to put on a Dragons jersey or something. It was a green and black stripe, or a red and black stripe, or a yellow and black stripe. It was just these big bumblebee jerseys. And I played 20 minutes, and they pulled me off. And then Mum goes, "How'd you go?" I said, I don't really know. I only got 20 minutes. Said, "Can you stay and trial next week?" And that was the invitational trial. And my plane ticket was home, so Mum and Dad had to change the ticket. And I stayed at Rod Reddy's place for the week, and then he took me down the park every day and was showing me stuff. And it was what he showed me back then worked for me through my whole career. What he showed me as an 18-year-old man then in the park would still work today and be very and I'd be successful today if I played the way Rocket was trying to show me back then, and then had a trial again, and it's pretty much the same minutes, and they pulled me off, and Brian Smith walked in and said, "The best thing to come out of Queensland's the highway. Why are you going to be any better?" And I didn't know what to say because, you know, you're talking to Brian Smith and he's a first-grade coach, and they said, "We would love you to come and play at the Dragons. What do you want?" And I said, "A job." So it was the easiest contract that they probably ever did.
Wow.
Because I didn't have a manager back then, and I didn't even know what a manager was. And they said, "Yep, cool." So I got a job, and I worked on the Hurstville Council, and then the rest is history.
August 29, 1992, 28 years ago this week, actually. What do you remember of your debut?
Not fond. I played under 21s. They told me I was going to play first grade that day. Said, "But you got to play half a game 21s. That's when you had to play." I said, "Listen, mate, get ready. Have half a game 21s. You're going to sit on the bench for first grade, and we'll give you, you know, the last 15 or 20 minutes." Well, at half time, Brian Smith threw me on. I remember running in. There was Graham Wynn playing. Andrew Farrer. My first hit up, I think, was at Andrew Farrer and Graham Wynn. And I just remember Graham Wynn pushing my head down in the dirt that much. I got up, had dirt all over me. I couldn't have wiped it off, but it was hurting a bit. And I stood up and looked at him, and he was standing there chewing gum. And I thought, holy ghost. I wasn't ready. And then the West had Darren Britt and Jimmy Dimmick and Joey Thomas. That's when all those guys went and played for West, I think. And, it wasn't fun. It wasn't a Sonny Bill Williams debut, let me tell you. It was pretty ordinary, and I reckon I run out of gas after about 15 to 20 minutes because it was just so fast. I just remember it being the quickest football that I've ever played.
Finish off your footy weekend with a laugh and maybe an insight or two. Every Monday night during the season, we're live on Facebook at 6:30 p.m. Check out our page at The Andy Raymond. From the outset, was there a feeling of belonging, or did you actually feel out of place?
Felt out of place. I didn't believe that I belonged until about 99 on a first grade footy field. That I was
1999?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Strange. Like when you make sides and that, like
you played for Queensland and Australia and
yeah, but it's sort of strange. But before, you know, like that when you run out on the field and you're part of it and you own the field and you're so belonging or being the big dog and being the man. I reckon it was 99 before I truly believed that when you're playing with Shane Webke or, you know, Laurie Daly or Brad Fittler or Andrew Johns, that you belonged in that sort of category, not just belonging playing first grade. You wanted to play with the best and make sure that they looked at you and, you know, they looked at you the way that you looked at them, I suppose.
Which old heads tried to make it tough for you in those early games? Try and, you know, pick on the little kid, on the young kid.
I remember playing against South in reserve grade, and I was at the Dragons and I was just running mad, and I thought I had to try to run and prove myself. So I'm trying to run over everybody, and there was blokes like Wayne Chisholm and all those guys that were in and out of first grade. And South had that tough pack. They had Les Davison and all those guys, Ian Roberts. So you imagine what their reserve grade side was like. Had a few old tough heads, and I remember they were just hitting me, and they were always just hitting me high because back then they could.
Yeah.
You know, like it was a bit of a cheap shot, you know, like just teach this kid a lesson. I remember playing with Wally Fulton-Smith, and I'll never forget it. He said, mate, he packed him on the scrum, said, leave the kid alone. And I think he headbutted, you know, and I'll never forget that. And then it's sort of like, hey, mate, let this kid play. You know, don't try to ruin him. And, you know, Wally Fulton-Smith, he's one of the greater fella, but that's what's missing from the game now is when you look at the Broncos and there's a Payne Haas or a young Fafita, there's not an old guy there that's got kids that goes home that realise what rugby league has given him, but I'm just going to pass down a few little tips here and I'm going to protect you. You know, there's no protectors anymore.
That year, the Broncos and the Dragons actually played the grand final.
Yeah.
You didn't, but the following year you did from the bench. Same two sides. What do you recall from your first grand final?
Tina Turner.
Yeah.
That's
huge at the time.
Huge at the time. And that's why I realised I wasn't ready, Andy. So I'm even playing in the grand final. And Tina Turner was in. And then the old dressing rooms, and you know the dressing rooms there at the SFS. And the doors opened up and I saw this huge a commotion outside, and it was Tina Turner there, and she had the black and her legs, and she was 60, and I'm thinking, wow, Tina Turner. Yeah, fast forward 10 years, I wouldn't even have noticed who was playing, had no idea who played at any of the other grand finals. Have no idea.
No.
But that grand final, I remember everything. So it just, to me, it proves that I wasn't totally focused on what my job was, and, you know, I went out there and tried my best, but Brisbane was so good. I think we beat them in about, just say, I don't know, if it was 22 rounds, we beat them in round 18, like at ANZ Stadium, and then Brisbane had to come the hard way, so they come from fifth, and you know I thought that, you know, and they had to beat the Bulldogs, they had to beat the Raiders, I think they might have had to beat Manly, and they had to come in the tough way, and no side had ever won it from fifth, so we were sitting in the gun seat, and Jason Stevens clashed with Glenn Lazarus really early in the match and got a compound fracture, and Steve-O was unbelievable. He was our big dog back then. And, we lost a bit then. And we never really regained in Brisbane. After playing with Brisbane, you just know that they're always going to be hard to beat, and they were hard to beat that day.
Did you progress quicker than you expected? I mean, it was only 6 months later you debuted for Queensland.
Yeah. It was strange, Andy. I played Jersey Flegg, and I played 6 games or something, and I broke my thumb at Manly playing against Anthony Bella. Anthony Bella was Martin Bella's younger brother, but he was a back row. He was a big, tall, 6'3", and I played my whole junior career against him. He's from Mackay. I'm from Townsville, and I broke my hand on his head, and I thought, oh, well, that's my St. George career gone because I'm played 7 games. And then under 21s was such a big jump, and it was so far away because I'm 18, and 3 years, and you don't know, and whatever, and I broke my thumb, and then Rod Reddy goes, still come to training. So I started training, trying to get the thumb better, just seeing whether it was going to heal quick enough. Andrew Johns won the Jersey Flegg Grand Final that year. Someone sent me the program through the week, actually. Andrew Johns was captain of Newcastle, I think, and then they won, and then I ended up playing under 21s. I think a few blokes got injured, and they said, do you want to have a game under 21s? It was at Manly, and I played, and must have played all right, and I played the next week under 21s. And then all the injured players must have come back in first grade, so I filters all back down. And then they said, mate, we don't need you because I think you only could carry 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 players on the bench. I didn't know what it was. And then Rod goes, mate, what are you doing this week? Rod Reddy, I said, I'm not playing. He goes, what? He's not playing. He goes, come and sit on the bench for reserve grade.
Wow.
What? So then I went from under 21s and I sat on the bench for reserve grade, played about 4 reserve grade games and played first grade. So it was sort of weird. I played 7 games under 19, probably 4 games under 21s and 4 games reserve grade. And then the next year, I started the year as a reserve grade back rower, so I didn't go back to under 21s. And then Matthew Elliott, who was the back rower, he did his knee, and a couple other guys did it, and Wally Fulton-Smith retired, and all these things happened. And then there was an opening. Then I ended up playing probably about 4 games reserve grade then and sat on the bench for first grade for the rest of the year. And then halfway through, I think, Wally Lewis rang me and said, are you ready for Origin? And when he rings you, you don't go, no, well.
No, when the king rings, you say yes. Mate, for Queensland, your debut, the coach is Wally Lewis, the captain is Mal Meninga. It probably doesn't get any better for a young Queenslander.
No, it doesn't. It's I was 7 when the first State of Origin was played, so to sit there and have your heroes, and they were my heroes, like Melbourne Inga.
Yep.
Like Wally Lewis. Like today, I get nervous around 3 guys in my life, and I've met a lot of people. One's Wally Lewis, the other was Greg Norman and Jimmy Barnes. They're the only 3 people that I've felt nervous. And to have Wally your coach, and then I'm playing with Alan Langer, and I just remember, the week being unbelievable, and you get to the MCG, and it was June 4 or June 6 in 1994, and I know it was 82,000 people or whatever there, and you go on, and I just remember just before Wally's given the speech, and I'm thinking, I'm playing for Queensland. Alfie Langer, who was our best player at the time, just started spewing. And he starts spewing, and I'm thinking, does he know something I don't know? Like, I thought I had the greatest week of my life. I'm having, mate, I got free food all week. I'm in a good bed. Mate, I was playing, I think, on $9,000, like at the Dragons. And you get like $3,000 for the whole week to play Origin or whatever. So I was balling then. Like I was rolling, mate. I was Floyd Mayweather then. I was Money Tallis. And then all that happens. And then Alf, when it comes time to switch it on, he just starts spewing. And I realised that Alf, that he got that nervous before games, and it was every game. But he kept on spewing. And I sort of looked at him and thought, I'm not ready for this. And then in the second half, like we got on, and I remember the first thing that happened, Benny Elias come out of dummy half, and he was so crafty, Benny. And he's pulled out of dummy half, and I thought, here's my chance. Right? Everything is lined up. I had him, and he couldn't step inside, couldn't step outside. And I've lined up, and I've aimed, right underneath his breast, because I thought that's where you hit him, right on the top of the sternum, I'm going to crunch him. And as I've gone to hit him, Benny Elias has ducked. You know how he ducks and he can keep on running? So he's ducked, and I've just hit the cricket pitch, because I've stopped and I've slid on the cricket pitch a bit like Strictly Ballroom and spun around because and just in slow motion, Benny's running through this gap. So I went to kill him, which taught me a valuable lesson: just make your tackle. Big hits will come, so don't try to make things happen. But that wasn't a great night either. I think Glenn Lazarus scored off a Shepherd, and I don't know, the score might have been 14-8 or something like that.
What did you take away from the experience as a person, not so much as a footballer? Because, that was such a qualified group of men in terms of men, not just rugby league.
That started my ambition to go play at Brisbane. Yeah. That's where it all started, because Brian Smith, as great as he was, and I still believe he's the best educator of football players ever, and I wouldn't change my career. But Alan Langer, how competitive they were, but how much fun they had in the big moment. I sort of needed that, because I was serious enough on game day. I just needed to get to game day. I didn't need to be serious on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Brian Smith.
But you were?
Yeah. Yes, he said, Brian Smith, because you couldn't laugh and you couldn't have a joke and all that kind of stuff. And where I played footy, I played because I loved it, and I was playing with my mates, and I lost that a little bit when I was at the Dragons, even though I was playing with my mates, but Brian Smith never made it feel that way, because we couldn't have the fun and we couldn't play the footy that we wanted to at times. And I remember Wayne Bennett walking into the Queensland function after, and he goes, mate, congratulations, sons, bloody well done, your first Origin series and that, whatever. And I said, how do you coach these two? Because Alf and Kevy were so much fun. And Alf just said, he doesn't coach him, I fucking do. Something like that. And I thought, to say that to the coach, I could never have said that to Brian Smith, because we didn't have that relationship. And I thought, I want to go and play with Alan Langer and Kevin Walters.
Well, that started the ball rolling, then Super League arrived, in concept anyway. You signed up and actually offered to buy out your contract from the Dragons, who said no. So you sat out the season. Yep. Now, is that Gordy being stubborn, loyal, financially based, or based on personal values?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I would have got more money to go back and play at the Dragons. They offered me way more money.
Wow.
It was over $30,000 a game. So, and I knocked my career wasn't based on money, Andy. I went to Super League for less money, and I know it sounds funny and people don't believe it. I was getting offered, $300,000 and $350,000 more to play at other clubs than Brisbane. And I gave it up to play for Brisbane.
Huge dollars for a young bloke.
Huge. But I was still well paid.
Yeah.
So if I didn't know that, and I looked at what I had, And I loved every moment of it. Yeah, of course you would have, lived a little bit more comfortable, but I wouldn't have enjoyed the ride to get to where I was going to. You know what I mean? And I was enjoying the ride. So,
do you have any regrets looking back on how you handled the situation or how it unfolded?
It was just strange times, and I didn't know who to believe. I was a 20-year-old kid. I never really had a manager, and then you're getting told by Jeff Carr and all the people that you trusted at the Dragons that, the Murdochs are a $2 shelf company and they don't care and all that. And, if you look at what Super League was meant to be, it would have been so much better for the players, for the clubs moving forward. Mm-hmm.
The concept was right.
The concept was right, and the players were underpaid. That's why if Super League doesn't come along, all those players, the highest paid player was playing on $100,000.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're getting this. And I know that the money become ridiculous, but that's what the game could afford to pay the players at the time. And it was pay television, and that's what they wanted. And the reason why I didn't go back, the reason why I sat out is because when they asked me, and I shoot from the hip, they asked me in a press conference, well, what happens if the competition doesn't get up and running? I said, well, I'll sit out there. And then when it come time to it, and the competition didn't get up and running,
you thought, shit.
I'm thinking shit. And then the Dragons kept on ringing me like Brownie, and I'm really good mates with Brownie and Chock and like Coyne, and then that's one regret because I felt like I let those guys down by not finishing the contract with them. But I signed not to play against them, to go play in another competition. So I was torn, and then I did the whole preseason with the Broncos. So then I knew all their secrets. So it would have been, I was torn, and the best thing to do was not play. And I remember going and talking to Dad, and I said, oh, Dad, I really want to go back and play. I just miss playing. And he goes, what did you say? I said, I'm going to sit out here. He goes, yep. So that was great dad advice because I didn't backflip. I didn't go against my word, and your word's your bond. And that's what had to happen back then. And as much as it hurt, and there was a few tears, and every time the Dragons won, they played in the grand final in 96. But I would run really hard. So when they were playing, I'd go for a run, and just run. And it was a bit frustrating at times and emotionally, that I was letting those guys down. But they had a chance to win, but they didn't.
In 1997, how did it actually feel wearing that Broncos jersey for the first time? Was it worth the wait?
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, I always wanted to wear the old Powers jersey, but with the times and the way the marketing teams work. But, yeah, it was a great feeling, to be a young kid in 1988. I was 15, when the Broncos first come in, and that's the only jersey that I ever really wanted to wear. And I was lucky to wear the Dragons jersey, and I loved my time there. And I'm so grateful to the Dragons and their fans, the way they treated us. The 60-odd players that run out in the under-21s reserve grade or first grade, they treated us, bloody hell, so, mate, like they were so kind. Unless we were losing. And and then they'd
tough crowd.
Yeah, tough crowd, but we were pretty successful when we were there, and they knew that we were trying hard. So, but Brisbane was always where I wanted to be, and I really struggled that year, Andy, for confidence. But it was still good to play. I don't reckon it was about round 20 before I felt like I belonged even in that Broncos team. Like I was struggling all year to get my timing and to play.
First impressions of the new club, do most of them revolve around the troublemakers, Kevy and Alfie?
No, just how hard they train.
That big a difference?
Massive.
Wow.
I've never trained like at the Dragons. Like we used to train hard, and then when I went to Brisbane, and they just trained at a different level to any other person. Like Dan Baker, their weights coach. Like I'm over in the corner and I'm lifting a weight, and just say I'm doing weights with Webby, and Webby's got 85 on her. I'm supposed to be like lifting 75, and Dan Baker had all this science behind, you lift what I give you because at the end of the day I'm going to get you stronger. So then instead of me just being lazy and take off the 10 kilos, I just lift Webby's weight, and he would get up you. Wow. Don't lift more weights. Lift the weight I'm giving you. So you're accountable everywhere. And then Kelvin Giles, who I never got trained by, was such a hard trainer that all of his training programs were left there. And then Steve Nance, and we're running 8.5 Ks through the hills, the first hills, 1.6 K up. And one of the boys said, listen, mate, just don't stop. I'm like, what do you mean if I'm tired? First run. So you're running, and then you just turn, and the hill just keeps on going. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. He said, don't stop. And then it was about to break me this hill. I don't know how far I was up. And just when I was about to stop, this voice, don't even think about it. It was Wayne Bennett. It was like a praying mantis. He was just stuck on this tree, hiding in the bushes. But because he must know that that's the peak, and I got to kick on, and you get over the hill, and then I'm glad I did, because then you go over the hill, and then but that's the biggest and hardest hill, and then there's one at the end that might be about 800, but it's straight up. It's bloody a hard run, and then
and the old bloke was keeping an eye on you.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Wayne?
It was different because when I was with Brian Smith, he was such an educator. And then the first time I really spoke to Wayne, it was getting closer to the games, So at training, it was just all about the team, and it was about defence and all that kind of stuff. And he didn't really get to me that much and didn't really want to show me that much. And I said, "Oh, mate, what do you want me to do today?" And he just gave me one of those stupid looks that he does. You know what he does to the media?
Yes.
Play footy.
That was it.
I said, "No, but,
Yeah.
He goes, "You heard." So I walked away more confused than what I did with the question walking over. Mate, if he would have said, "Mate, just do this," mate, just make your tackles.
Here are your goals or something
mate,
like that.
just make your tackles and don't stop or whatever. Like, I just needed something. He's supposed to be the master coach, and it was nothing. It was just play footy. Yeah.
You're listening to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series. We have corporate and private sponsorship packages available. You set the terms. For further information on how you can become part of the team, go to the website andyraymondunfiltered.com.au and hit the sponsorship tab. Who did you look to for leadership, Gordy, in those
so many.
early years at the Bronx?
Probably all of them. You know what I mean? Like it was such a star-studded side. I suppose the forward leader was Glenn Lazarus.
Yeah.
And he'd won so much, and then you played against him and you knew how hard he was. And we played against him at the Dragons, and I think it was after a city country game, and he got man of the match, and he run back then for like 300 metres.
Yeah.
The next day backing up, and he was just a freak. And then Lazo he didn't win any everything, but he touched every line and he did everything. With people say arrogance, but it was a confidence.
Yeah.
Because knowing Lazo, it wasn't arrogant. Because he just knew what he had to do to be the player that he wanted to be. And he never changed. And the greatest thing about Glenn Lazarus, and a lot of people get confused, is he knew his job was a front rower, and he did what front rowers do. He didn't think he was a back rower. He didn't think he was Arthur Beach, and he did what Glenn Lazarus was good at for his whole career. So it's a strong discipline for him not to leave Glenn Lazarus and what Glenn Lazarus was really good at. And he was a leader, and I suppose that run that I'm talking about, the guy who holds the record there is Kevy Walters.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he looks like a little fair income. He looks like a bag of mince, doesn't he? Like his body. It just looks like 15 kilos of mince hanging out everywhere when he takes his shirt off. But his mental toughness is unbelievable. He's the most mental tough player that I've ever played with. Just to go and run and put himself through pain and not stop and do it at a level. And don't forget, there was the Lockies and the Willie Kahns and the Wendell Sailors and Lotties and all these amazing athletes that have come through. But Kevy holds the record.
Kevy, I don't think, gets enough recognition for his feats and his achievements on the field. You've told me before how mentally tough he is, and he's at the top of your list. But there's also another wonderful side to Kevy that not too many get to see. I mean, he is as loose as they come. What's your favourite memory of him and Alf, who were a great combination, just terrorising Wayne Bennett?
Just like all the time, because Wayne would have a tendency to overcoach if we're coming up against a Phil Gould, like a Chris Anderson, or mainly just a great team. Wayne just wanted every box ticked, and then Alf and Kevy say, "No, Red Roosters closing soon," because then they love it. No, you wouldn't believe it. Old Beverly Nuts, she just she'll keep it open for me, Kevy, or whatever. And then it would be that, or Wayne's son Justin, and we all know the challenges that he had. Like, he'd come to training one day, and Wayne had an accident in the car. Now I've been teaching Justin how to drive again, or whatever. But they just kept everybody accountable. Yep. And then if you had a bad game. Like, I remember Alf and Kevy, like, they'd walk off and they'd be talking to each other, but they'd be talking loud enough that everybody would hear. And they go, "Oh, geez, I'd love to be playing behind that Bulldogs forward pack." And Brad Thorne goes, "Oh." And then Thorny just looks at me, Webby, and then Webby goes, "They're a pack of arseholes." So just shut up. I know what they're trying to do. Yeah. And the next minute, Thorny'd say, "Not on our watch."
Yep.
Not on our watch. He goes, "Behind every joke, there's a bit of truth." We, and then like where I'm thinking, just tell me on Sunday, tell me 2:55. Don't tell me Friday when we're walking off training, because then I'll be thinking about what we got to do. So they kept everybody accountable. They were the most fun to have. When I retired, Kevy gave me a great picture, and it says, "Train hard, play hard, party hard," which means make sure that you have a beer with your mates. And then they were the best at, after a loss, we're all sitting there and we, it's a horrible feeling. And then they'd grab a beer and say, "Right, boys," and they'd start teasing Wendell for dropping the ball or me for missing a tackle or whatever they did. And then everybody, and it'd be done then and there. Like I think when Ben Hunt dropped that ball in the grand final, I think both of them had a go at him on the plane. So then all
that's
of a sudden,
good story, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. So then all of a sudden it's out there. Let's just move on. So they were really good at celebrating your wins, but also putting your losses away really, really quick. Let's address it now. I'm going to tease you guys, but when we get there Tuesday morning or Monday morning, that's when we work hard on it.
From my observations over the years outside of the team unit, the great teams, like the truly great teams, like that Broncos team, they need a mix of personalities. They need a mix of characters. You can't have 30 serious blokes. You can't have 30 jokers. You can't have 30 loose units. You've got to have that mix of good, bad, crazy, sane, serious, nutty. And the Broncos had that. Yeah,
we did. So we had Alfie that was a captain, but he was really serious, and Kevy run the side. So don't let the joking, don't let the laughing and the joke fool how serious he is. And then you had these young guys coming through, myself, Wendell, Webby, Thorny, Lockie, that all wanted to be like those guys. So we were driving, so we were probably the enthusiasm, and then you've got, the confidence of a Lazo, and you've got the toughness of an Andrew Jean, a Peter Irons, and a Johnny Plath that just used to sit on the bench, and he'd love to have a beer and a smoke. So he was like a part-time footballer. He was he was like the best player at your club all your life, that just used to sit at the bar before a game and after a game. He'd be out Friday night and he'd bring his boots on Sunday and be the best player, like Johnny. And that's Johnny Plath. Yeah. But like we did have everybody. Yeah? And then we had Steve Renouf that didn't like training that much, but did enough to train. But on the weekend, you wanted him there beside you. And you wanted to pass him the ball. Then you had Wendell that had, Big Dell, and he gave himself all his own nicknames. But it was a great club. And then Darren Smith and Michael DeVere and Michael Hancock. It was just a great organisation to be involved in.
Griffin Air Conditioning offers the highest quality of air conditioning sales and service across the Sydney metropolitan area, providing installation and maintenance to commercial, domestic and industrial customers. Working with this team, you'll be guaranteed the latest services, technology and developments in the industry. Visit griffinair.com.au and tell them we sent you for a cool deal. Speaking of nicknames, where did the Raging Bull come from and who started it?
Shane Edwards.
Our
old CEO. So one of the journalists rang and said, "Oh, mate, what about that bloke?" He goes, "Yeah, he's like a raging bull." And then all of a sudden they started riding it, and then everybody that rode it would say, "Oh, the Raging Bull," or, like the first person to ride SBW, then everybody calls him SB,
Run with it, because you've been called worse.
Oh, yeah, I called myself, on radio through the week, I called myself an old dairy cow now because my udders are just starting to stretch a little bit. They're not as taut as they used to be. No, it could be a worse nickname. I don't call myself that, but Nike, I used to put it on my boots and all that, so when you'd go into certain rep camps, you'd get, the boys would put a bit of shit on you.
That's
but
right.
if you wore the boot, you had to play like it.
Mate, the Broncos in 97 beat the Sharks, a split competition. Did it feel like a genuine premiership at the time, or was something missing?
Oh, of course something was missing.
Yeah.
There was two competitions, and I watched Manly play Newcastle, and I loved that grand final.
Yeah, one of the greats.
And that felt like a grand final. Watching the Johns boys walk around with their dad, Gary, watching Chief and Spud go at it, Tuvey and McDougall standing on his head. Like, I remember that game more than I remember my game. But the next year, stamped that grand final because we played and we beat them all again.
98, you beat Canterbury. It was a different feeling, wasn't it?
Yeah, but we played Newcastle in about round 10 or round 12. And
huge matchup. The build-up to that was enormous.
And Wayne Bennett made us build up for it, where he never does club games. He never builds you up, but he goes, boys, if you want to rubber stamp your grand final last year, right, and it was built up as a Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff, where the two conferences come together. Well, we played really good that night and we beat them. So, obviously, it was different teams. It was different tournament. And then we won the grand final. Yeah, the Dogs, that was that amazing run where the Dogs beat all those sides. You know, and Parramatta was the one. I think Eels. It was 18-0. But I think the Dogs were out on their feet with every game, but they just kept on getting there. And I suppose in the grand final, they were leading us at half time, which was unusual. And then we end up running them down in the end.
The 2000 grand final, your third, the toughest one. I mean, an amazing game against the Roosters.
Yeah, it was probably the hardest to win because of the calibre of players that we lost. In '98, I still say that's the greatest side that I've ever played with. It was an amazing club side, and I would back that team. And I'm not much of a punter, but I'd back that team to beat any team that I've ever watched. Yeah. And I know it's different against the eras and that Raiders, you know, the 94 Raiders, and I would have loved, but not everybody can, you know, fight each other in their primes, you know. But
can you compare eras? I find it difficult too.
No, you can't. But I think a great side in one era would be super competitive in the other. Yeah. That Dragon side that won 11 in a row. Just, mate, I would love to play against them. And I would walk out of my dressing room thinking that we're going to win. Yep. We might not, because that side that I played with, mate, we got beaten on occasion. Yeah. And you're not, you know, and we didn't go through undefeated. So that Dragon side, they would have, you know, the bragging rights. Yeah, like, mate, their dressing room, mate, when they walk out, I don't think they think they're going to lose, but that's what the great sides do. Andy, you've called boxing for a long time. I don't think there's a fighter in a world title fight thinking he's going out there and he's not going to knock the other bloke out.
Exactly right, yeah.
You know, and that's what makes sports so great. And 2000, like, we lost, you know, Pearl and Andrew G and all those guys. I think young Dane Carl will come. Harvey Howard, who when Tommy was coaching West, he told Wayne to take Harvey Howard, a couple others, and Brett Hodgson. He goes, this kid Brett Hodgson, and then we had Darren Lockyer at fullback. But, you know, Brett Hodgson was another guy that Tommy goes, these two kids are going to be really good. And Harvey played in our grand final. It was a totally different side, but it felt like ours. It felt like I was a big part of that premiership where the others, even though people see you as a big part of it, but it was sort of won by Elf and those guys, like, and they were the mainstays.
It wasn't long after this, the neck issues started to surface. An incredible roller coaster of emotion for you over, an 18-month period. Yeah,
it was 2001. You know, I get named Queensland captain. It's my favourite game of all time. We say goodbye to the old Lang Park. It's my first ever time as captain, the last ever game Queensland will ever play at Lang Park. And we come off a horrible loss the year before, the 56-16 with the Brian Fletcher hand grenade. Yep. And we had 10 debutants, other than the original game. Like, everybody talks about Fatty side, and that was amazing what they did, but we had more debutants than that year. And we end up winning. And then the next game I'm playing, it's round 13 against the Northern Eagles, and I go to step inside Adam Muir, and he just clicks me high. And it's not that he did it. And then I'm laying on my back, and I had a disc that slid forward and was pushing on my spinal cord, and I had to get it taken out, and I got a narrowing of the spine. So I should have retired then, you know. But as all people do, you know, they try to come back. But I knew that the armour that you have, Andy, in life, and the armour that you build up by training hard and doing all those things, and part of it is, you know, are you born with it? I lost a lot of it that day. It's like going into a sword fight and you've got a little plastic knife, you know.
Were you immediately concerned, or didn't you perhaps respect the situation as much as you would now?
I didn't know, because I'm laying on my back. Yeah. And I knew there was 12 minutes to go. Lockie goes, stay down. And then everybody thought I was knocked out. And then the trainer, Kenny Wright, I said, Kenny, I'm not knocked out, mate. Yeah. I said, I know it's tackle two. I said, he called tackle two. I said, I know who tackled me. I said, look at this. I said, there's like 12 minutes to go in the game or whatever. I said, I know exactly. And he goes, what's happening? I said, I just can't move. And then his face. But then I went to sit up, and because you've got abs and all that, and then but my arms and legs, and then they started burning really bad. And then I went off, and I'm sitting on the sideline, and silly enough, I was talking to the doctor. I said, Doc, can I go back on? He goes, yeah, mate, when your arms and legs stop burning, because it's like you just sat on the toilet, and then it just progressively just got worse and worse, and then I went to the hospital the next day. And the funny thing was, I drove myself to the doctors, and I got a scan. Bloke goes, "How'd you get here?" I said, "I drove."
Yeah.
He's, "What?" I said, "I drove." He goes, "Oh, can you sit there and don't move?" I'm thinking, if I go see one more doctor, he's going to put me under, made 6 foot under. Yeah. But yeah, so like I was lucky to be walking, and then like any sort of slight movement, well, I could have been paralysed. So I was really lucky, and I dodged a bullet, and I was lucky enough to come back and play, but I was never the player that I was before the day.
If you're enjoying Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series, we'd love for you to go to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening and subscribe to the podcast and give us a 5-star rating and review. Best weekly review wins an Unfiltered Trucker's hat.
In hindsight, are you glad you made the call to retire at the time you did, or would have you changed the timing?
No, I would have retired then.
Yeah.
I would have, because I came back the next year. I would have played 3 or 4 games and pulled the pin, because I just knew it wasn't the same, because I was looking at, like, when I was taking a hit up before that, I never looked at who I was running at. I was looking at other stuff, and then I was sort of looking up thinking, okay, well, where's he going to hit me? And I was protecting where I was going to get hit instead of running, and then they had to find a spot on me to tackle. So I was, running not to get hurt. I know it sounds funny, and it's hard to explain. So I wasn't that player. And in hindsight, I probably was the Wally Fulton-Smith that wasn't the player, but you're helping the young kids through. I haven't spoken to all those guys that played with me in 2003, 4, 2, 3 and 4, but maybe I was that guy, maybe I wasn't.
How'd you find the transition from football into life following retirement?
Yeah, I found it easy because I knew I wasn't the player. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't it happened overnight, Andy, but then I was still sort of living the dream, and it was getting harder. And I remember, like, one time I was playing the Dragons, I got tackled in the back, and as I got tackled in the back, like, my hands would still go numb every now and then, a bit like Tatey, like you'd lay there and it's like, and it'd spasm again a little bit, because I don't know the medical terms. And then I come home, and it was Mother's Day, and Mum was crying, and she goes, "I don't like watching you play anymore." So I said, "Wayne, I don't want to play." And then,
that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And that's why I played, because they loved it. So then that was sort of hard to finish those next couple of seasons. And then I was driving to another game one time, and it was bloody hot. And I drove past the paddo, and everybody was standing there having a beer with their mates. And I thought, God, I'd love to be there. Yeah. A bit like the early part of my career where I got distracted because I saw Tina Turner. Well, in the late part of my career, I wanted to be somewhere else as well. So that's when I knew that I had enough, Andy, where – I know it's strange, like I'd climb the mountain, if you want to call it a mountain, or like a little hill, like I made my little, and I did the best that the little skinny kid from Townsville. If I would have dreamed of my career, and I was 15, 14, 13, I would never have dreamt what I did. So it was above anything that I would have ever imagined.
When you look back, captaining the Broncos, the Maroons, the Kangaroos, did each appointment give you the same feeling, the same, I guess, sense of achievement or pride, or was each appointment different? Yeah,
they're all different, I suppose. The thing that I remember the most was, I suppose, when I got selected for Queensland the first time, and I got the phone call, like, "Are you ready?" whatever. But then I was in getting a haircut at in Oatley in the southwest of Sydney, and this old lady was getting the perm, have those little egg dome things overhead, and she goes, "You're that Tallis boy, are you? You just made the Queensland side." I'm thinking, well, I don't think so, love. Queensland won the first game.
Yeah.
The Mark Coyne, the Miracle.
The Miracle.
Queensland don't change their side.
Yeah.
They don't. But that's when Marty Bella got up. He played the ball sideways, and, obviously they just wanted to make a change and had won and start blooding some young guys. So I come in for game 2. But that lady told me, and I went outside, and I'm thinking, and she goes, no, I'm serious. And I'm thinking, no, she's bullshitting here. And I'm sitting there, and I couldn't help myself. So I ran out to the payphone, put some money in. I rang Mum, and she was crying. So that's the moment that I remember the most out of my career of getting something. I suppose the first ever Queensland jersey was ringing your mum, and she's emotional and she can't talk.
Yeah.
To the others, they're sort of, I don't know, because I suppose that was my dream. To get the captaincy is like, wow. But there's so many leaders. They have the C beside your name.
Yeah.
I know it means a lot to people, but a C beside your name doesn't mean as much as the jersey. And I suppose when you play for your country, Andy, and you've been on so many tours and you've watched it, it's a proud moment.
Yeah,
and we're really close, and we know what we're playing for. Blokes went away in a rusty tin boat to fight for our freedom, and we're over there staying in good hotels, you know, wearing nice suits and RMs and going out there. And I remember one of Choppy Close's speeches before we were playing for Australia. He goes, "You're in a 5-star. You haven't paid for a Zach. Look at you. You got RM William boots on. You got RM William pants and this and that and that." And I'm adding it up in my head because he goes, "You got $1,000 worth of clobber on. You got this," and my little brain's going like that. But it was true. And he goes, and then all they want you to do is put your body on the line. Yeah. And it was just so simple for us. And, you know, that's what it was. And then, you know about the kangaroo and the emu and why they're on your coat of arms is because they can never take a backward step.
Yep.
So you hear all those stories and they're great moments, but they don't stand out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
You know what I mean? I don't remember the first time I ever got selected for Australia, but I do when they told me that I was playing for Queensland. Old Shirley was getting a perm.
That is super weird. It
is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like you think that you're there and, you know, someone gives you a call or whatever, and I get home and I had the, you know, like the little recorder, what are they called? You know, the voice machines, you know, and had the tape in, and I played it back, and it was about 40, "Hey, Gordon," and there's all this blah, 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 and there's all these messages, "Can you ring?" So I missed the plane on the way to Sydney, so I was supposed to go to Sydney, so I'm going the next day. So I even missed the first day in camp because I was out getting a haircut.
What made you special, better than most? Was it talent, power, want, desire? Is it a combination?
Better than most, or being the best that Gordon Tallis could be, was I hated losing, and I wanted to make mum and dad proud. And I know that might sound really corny, but my brother played for the Broncos. Yep. And he was a superstar. And I remember when we'd go to the Sports Reserve, we'd go watch our club play, and they'd always ask how Wally's going. And it wasn't out of being, you know, sarcastic and, you know, how's he going? It was like genuine interest in him. And then, you know, he wasn't quite going through the ranks as quick as what he probably should have. And then he did have a bad car accident and he hurt his back and had to retire. But, like, he didn't, like, he had all the talent in the family. He should have played NRL first grade. And probably the way it is probably like Jason Smith and Darren Smith, because Wally played with Jason Smith and against Matty John. So all those guys that played go, "God, your brother was this," but never quite kicked on. And then I just remember Mum and Dad always having to answer, "Where's Wally?" And it's not a knock on Wally. And then when I left, I thought, they're never going to get asked. People are going to see me. Yep. So when I jumped on the plane, that, as silly as it was, that's not motivation. Like, now I think about it, but that's what motivated me at the time. You know, and then on the way is, you know, like not letting your teammates down. But I think it's all of the above, Andy. And I love the occasion. Like, I loved the bright lights.
Yeah. What are you most proud of when you look back? Is there a moment, a game, an achievement, a legacy? What fills you with pride?
I don't know. I suppose people probably like playing with you. I suppose that's the one. That's if, you know, like you see over social media, and it's getting to that age now, and people, you know, pick their greater side of the last 30 years, and I'm in most of the blokes' sides that you played against or with, and that's pretty cool.
I bet it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're like, for people to say that you're that player, it's, I think your peers recognising you as, you know, as a guy that they didn't like playing against or love playing with, or, you know, if they don't pick you, it doesn't mean that you're not good. I remember, old Ned Kelly, he goes, "I can't believe I beat Steve Walters for Hooker of the Year," and he goes, "I don't need to be in this team to know," because he's such a legend fella. But it was just great to, you know, hear his speech. So you don't need to make the teams. It doesn't make you a better player. It doesn't make you a worse player, but it's nice.
In the years to come, how would you like to be remembered? As a footballer and a bloke?
Just remembered.
Just remembered?
Well, if they remember you, they remember you. You can't change their opinion of you. Not someone's opinion of you that don't really know you, you can't change it.
Gordon Tallis, you, sir, are a legend.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Legends series. Throughout the month of September, we're dropping a new episode every third day. Be sure to subscribe to Andy Raymond Unfiltered wherever you're listening. And to ensure you don't miss any news on what's coming up, follow our social media pages at The Andy Raymond. Dropping Thursdays, starting October 1st, it's the Weekly Wodge. It's a little bit of this, plenty of that. A mix of the serious and the not so. Interviews, segments, specials and special guests. If you enjoy the lighter side of the wonderful world of sport and fart jokes, you'll enjoy the Weekly Wodge. Come back soon, legends.